Welcome to another special episode of the Trade Australia show here. I'm Lawrence Christof, your host. And tonight's episode is very special indeed. We have with us Ratnakar Adhikari, who's the Executive Director at Enhanced Integrated Framework, Secretariat at the WTO. Ratnakar, wonderful to have you. Thank you for making the time over in Geneva to join us here in Australia.
Thank you for having me.
Ratnakar, please tell us about the EIF and how it came about in the first place.
Right. EIF, let me start by saying that the least developed countries are the countries where we work. And these least developed countries, you probably know, and there are 45 of them right now, the most disadvantaged countries in the world. And these countries many of them became a member of the World Trade Organization back in 1995 when the WTO came into being. And they realize that they have tremendous market access opportunities because they can literally export anything to the world. But at the same time, they realize that they didn't have the kind of goods that they could produce and have enough surplus and then produce at a competitive level in desired quality to be exported to the global market. So they thought that the major problem lies at the within the border itself, which is at the country level, that they had a significant challenge in terms of supplying the goods. And this is what we call supply side constraint. So in order to address that challenge, the EIF came into being. And this actually came into being in 1996 when the idea was initiated at the Singapore Ministerial Conference, first Ministerial Conference of the WTO. And then in 1997, a high-level conference was organized for the least developed countries, and that's when it was called EIF, Integrated Framework, was initiated back then. So this was like the birth of the EIF back then, and then EIF as Integrated Framework continued for several years until 2009 when the EIF came into being. So it was then called Enhanced Integrated Framework, right? So it was EIF first, then it became EIF. So EIF as a facility, as a mechanism, as a partnership, it is a partnership. It is a partnership of 45 least developed countries and few recently graduated countries, such as the one in your region, Vanuatu, and few other graduating, including Solomon Island, and another recently graduated country, Bhutan. So these are the kind of LDCs who are our core partner. Then we also have 24 donors who contribute resources to our trust fund, and that's the kind of a donor group. And we have third group, which is called the international agencies such as the World Trade Organization, where we are housed, International Trade Center, UNCTAD, World Bank, IMF, UNDP, and we also have UNIDO and UN World Tourism Organization as a part of our family. So this is a big partnership. The reason it's a partnership is that all the partners work together to provide targeted trade-related support to LDCs in order to help them to overcome trade-related challenges at the country level as well as at the international market, right? Yeah. So, and the other important aspect of the Enhanced Integrated Framework is that it is country-driven, in the sense that it's owned by the country. The entire process is driven by the countries themselves, by LDCs themselves, and they decide what are the type of support they need from us, and we provide support according to the demand and request from the countries based on their own priorities. Then what we also do is we provide full suite of support. It's like other agencies, what they do is they go there and provide an analytical support or a productive capacity building support. But when we go to a country for the first time, we provide them what is known as analytical support. We conduct diagnostic trade integration studies called DTIS. And DTIS is the instrument that helps countries to identify what are their challenges and opportunities in the trade landscape. And then based on that, they also identify, some of the projects in terms of the ideas that they need to pursue in order to overcome the challenges. And these like binding constraints are identified through the DTIS process. Then we provide them institutional support. And institutional support is aimed at helping countries to address those challenges. And those actually challenges are then prioritized in the form of action metrics. And these challenges are addressed through the institutional support that we provide, which is in the form of, really having a kind of a unit within the Ministry of Trade called National Implementation Unit, and they are responsible for implementing all of these priority actions identified through the DTIS. But then, some of these priority actions can be implemented with a stroke of a pen. For example, if you are talking about reducing the number of papers that are required at the custom point, then it can be done with a stroke of a pen, and the National Implementation Unit can convince the ministry or the minister to sign a policy or sign a decree, and then that's implemented. But there are certain other challenges, such as challenges in the area of productive capacity building. If you don't have the standard kind of institution or lab that would test the quality of product and can certify the quality that it is fit for purpose for the international market, they won't be able to export. If you want X-ray machine at the custom in order to check the goods, scan the goods, then you need a big investment. If you want to establish a port facility, you need big investment. If you want to establish, let's say, like we did in Vanuatu, a seafront that was completely destroyed by Cyclone Palm in 2015. They wanted to rebuild the seafront at Port Vila. We provided them support, and these are support that require significant amount of resources. And for that, we do provide resources. Depending on the phases of the program, we have provided from 1.5 million up to 3 million. But the expectation is that the countries themselves are able to mobilize additional resources. So that's the kind of support that we provide. And we are globally recognized. For example, Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 8A talks about the Enhanced Integrated Framework as a coordinating mechanism for providing aid for trade support to LDCs. The Doha Program of Action, which is essentially a program of action designed for LDCs for the ongoing decade, also talks about the EIF. So that's broadly what EIF is and what EIF does and how it came into being.
That's incredible, Ratnakar. I mean, what you've described there, it's so comprehensive and strategic, but also practical as well. So it really brings together the planning, the hand-holding, the activation, and making sure that you see it through to delivery, which is wonderful and so transformative for all those LDCs. I think, it's not just the country, but the individuals and the impacts that domino right throughout the communities and future generations must be so, exciting to be part of.
Exactly. And some of these, like we've also started various initiatives that are especially targeted to help LDCs to take advantage of new opportunities that are emerging. For example, digital trade is an opportunity that is really emerging. And particularly during the time of COVID, the kind of support that we provided to LDCs on digital space came really handy for them to address significant challenges, and including those in some of the Pacific Island countries. The other area where we have been active in terms of supporting the LDCs is that we realize that there's a lot of focus on trade, but there's not enough focus on investment. When it comes to trade, basically, or trade-related investment, you want to attract foreign investors or even local investors to bring money into the country, to invest resources into business in order to expand business opportunity, so that you can not only expand business opportunity but also export more and better quality goods, get integrated into the global value chain, as well as provide the most important development benefit that is the providing job opportunity and which helps in poverty alleviation and all of that. So in order to do that, I think investment is critical, right? So therefore, we partner with our partners such as UNCTAD, World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, UNIDO, and others, in order to provide targeted support to LDCs, not only to strengthen their capacity to promote investment, but also to retain investment. And we also help them with the legislative and regulatory part so that they could improve their investment climate overall and they are able to attract investors. So that's another area. And the third area where we are now actively working is to help LDCs to address the challenges arising from climate change, as well as, make their economies competitive, make their farms competitive in the global market, even on the face of the significant challenges arising from climate change that they are facing. So these are some of these new areas, emerging areas where we are actively working.
Wonderful. Ratnakar, one of the things that really stands out to me, and I do a lot of these interviews around the world, is that your passion and joy in what you're doing. Tell us about your background with trade and your role now with EIF.
Oh, okay. On background on trade, actually, I started working on trade issues since 1994. 1994, just a few months before the WTO came into being,
Yeah.
actually. So I set up this network called South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics, and Environment back in my home country, Nepal. And this was actually initially headquartered in Calcutta, in India. Now what it's called Kolkata in
Yeah.
India. And then later in 1997, the secretariat was moved to Kathmandu. And then I was assigned by all the founding members, assigned the responsibility of managing the secretariat. It's essentially a think tank where a lot of the research and advocacy and capacity building work is done. So we talk about the capacity building of policymakers, capacity building of journalists, capacity building of young sort of entrepreneurs and all of that. So that's one part of the work that I started, and it's still fully functional. When I left the organization in 2013 to join the executive secretariat of the EIF here in WTO, that even after that, the organization is fully functional, and actually doing a lot of work in the area of not only trade but also on other macroeconomic issues, as well as on poverty alleviation and climate change and other areas. So in between, what I've done also is to work with some other international organizations, such as the UNDP regional center in Colombo. I spent about 3 years there. Oh no, 2 years there, and then during that 2 years, my responsibility was to provide support to four least developed countries again: Bangladesh, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, and Nepal, my own country. So all four countries were going to face the significant challenges because of the phasing out of textile and imported clothing quota back in 2005. If you recall that there was this moment when everybody thought that the entire textile value chain in entire textile
Yeah.
sector and clothing sector in these four countries were going to be destroyed. So my responsibility was to help them to sort of ease the burden, I mean, also help them to diversify their exports away from textile and clothing, as well as to help them to add value on textile and clothing sector so that they can move up the value chain ladder. And then this project actually helped me to really understand the significant challenges. And now we are in a situation where Cambodia and Bangladesh are still among the largest exporters of textile and clothing. They have managed to withstand all the shocks, but at the same time, Laos, PDR, and Nepal, they haven't done so well in that area. And meanwhile, I also worked with the private sector, a bank, a French bank, which was based in Kathmandu. Now they have been acquired by the local sort of business people, but now it is called something else. But then back then it used to be called Nepal Indo-Suez Bank, and it was a part of Crédit Agricole Group of France. I
Right.
served that institution as at a mid sort of manager level for about 7 years. And then I also served the government of Nepal as the senior advisor of the National Planning Commission, and that was the time when the Nepal was drafting its first interim plan after the country declared itself as a republic, and I was responsible for drafting the trade and investment chapters of
Wow.
the interim plan. Yes, and then I have done extensive research in the area of international trade and investment, aid for trade, competition policy, intellectual property rights, and regional integration. And in terms of education, I have done my PhD on aid for trade, and then this is an area where
Yeah.
I'm working now from the University of Warwick. And I also, in order to sharpen my skill on trade-related areas, I have done my second master's from the World Trade Institute, and it's called Masters in International Law and Economics, called MILE program, and
Right.
that I did in 2001, between 2001 and 2002. So that's overall my background on trade. I've been working ever since I started my career. I've only been working in least developed countries. So that
Wonderful.
could be why the where the passion is coming from.
Well, it definitely, it's so evident, and I'm sure that it must be infectious with the LDCs that you work with and your teams as well, because, as the leader to really basically create a vision for each of these LDCs and what's possible and inspire them to actually take those actions. It's great to have all the theory and the practice, but it really starts with the vision and the inspiration. So I can see where that comes from. Congratulations. So Ratnakar, tell us, we've just passed Q1 for 2024. What type of programs and initiatives are you hoping to roll out with EIF for the remainder of the year?
Right. So in 2024, it is a critical juncture. EIF is at a critical juncture. I'll tell you what. So in 2009, we started Enhanced Integrated Framework. The first phase of the program ended in 2015. We started the second phase in 2016, which was meant to continue till 2024, this year, right? And then we did our evaluation, a kind of comprehensive evaluation in 2021. And then that came out of the finding that EIF has been doing excellent work, but there are areas where we need to do, more work, or there, some of this structure, including the governance structures and the value for money aspects, need to be looked at more carefully. So, in order to sort of have kind of a better program, a program, or possibly a new program or a continuity of this existing program. Currently there's a discussion going on at the level of the task force, and this task force has representatives from the donor constituency as well as LDC. They are working on it, and hopefully they will be in a position to finalize the new program very soon. But right now, in the interim period, given the fact that some of our donor partners who have been extremely generous in terms of providing support to us, have actually come up with the idea that they would like to provide what is known as interim facility. And this interim facility would help us bridge the gap between the end of phase two, which would be happening very soon, and the new program, right? So we are at this phase. And in this phase, what we are doing, and these donors, I just want to thank them, and I really want to acknowledge their contribution, starting with Norway. Then we have Sweden, who contributed resources to the interim facility, the UK, the United Arab Emirates. Then we also have Finland now, which will also be making a contribution. So with this contribution, we could sort of continue to provide support to LDC. So the small amount of support that we are providing to LDCs would help them to address their critical challenges, mostly on the institutional side of it, rather than big money providing up to 2 million or 3 million in order to address infrastructure kind of challenges, right? So And the kind of support that we are providing are in various areas, such as helping some of the countries to become a member of the WTO. We are very proud of the fact that we have supported several list several countries to become a member of the WTO accession. Right. We've also supported regional integration. Many African countries who are now, who have now become a part of the AFCFTA,
Yeah.
African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. They have been supported by the EIF in order to sort of bring their legislative regime in line with the AFCFTA, as well as put in place various mechanisms to help the private sector benefit from the AFCFTA. So we are supporting in that space also. We are supporting regional integration in ASEAN also. So these are various kinds of work that we've done in the past. We'll continue to do so. For example, in the UAE, Abu Dhabi, the 13th Ministerial Conference of the WTO, we saw the induction of two new LDC members, Comoros and Timor-Leste. We had provided extensive support to them, and that we had provided support to them, but we'll continue to provide support to them to fulfill their post-accession commitment. So pre-accession support, during the accession support, and then post-accession support. We've been providing those kind of support. We're currently supporting countries such as Bhutan, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia to become member of the WTO, accession to WTO. That's one area of support that we are providing. Another cluster of support, as I mentioned, is the AFCFTA implementation support. The third cluster of support that we are providing to LDCs, particularly those that are in the process of graduation, is to help them to enhance their competitiveness, reduce their trade costs, and attract investment. Right. So these are the kind of support they need. So our support are essentially custom made and custom tailored based on the requests from the country. But then we also tell them that if the support can be enhanced by sort of joining forces with other partners, then why not, right? So for example, in few countries we provided them support with the expectation that they are able to mobilize additional resources, and some of them have given us a clear plan of how they are going to mobilize resources from the likes of the World Bank, from the likes of African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, and few other institutions, including the bilateral donors, on how they could potentially mobilize resources. So these are the kind of work that we are doing, in terms of the substance. But in terms of our global advocacy and engagement, also we are involved with various initiatives, such as the Global Aid for Trade initiative, which is taking place here in the Global Review. Actually, it's taking place this year in June at the WTO, June 26th to 28th. We will be actively engaged in that, showcasing some of our work, as well as inviting some of the LDCs to present their stories themselves, rather than us telling the audience as to what we've been able to achieve. So that's one. The other one is the public forum, the WTO public forum, which is taking place later this year from 10th to 13th September. We will be actively engaged there. And one more thing, I think this would relate very well to your audience probably, is that we are engaged with Global Trade Professional Alliance, which is GTPA. I don't know whether you've heard of them.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
In Australia, and they are planning their upcoming 2024-25 Festival of Inclusive Trade, and we are going to be involved with. Actually, we had a meeting with both of them yesterday to discuss the possibility of collaboration. So these are the kind of things that we will be doing in 2024 and 2025.
It sounds amazing. There's so many great things there, and it's a truly incredible initiative and programs, plural, right across so many of those LDCs in so many regions around the world. Finally, if I can ask Ratnakar, as you mentioned, here in the APAC region, even though we are seeing globally, but we're focused here right now for this show in Australia and APAC. Tell us, how can companies, individuals, organizations get more involved, learn more about EIF. And you mentioned GTPA, which is great, and I'm sure there's many other organizations and other individuals and corporations who'd love to get involved with you.
Exactly. So first and foremost, I also want to recognize the contribution of the Australian government, DFAT, who has been a valued partner for the EIF and has provided, 8.72 million US dollar in terms of the contribution, both in the phase 1 and phase 2 altogether put together. So this contribution is extremely valuable. And more importantly, what they have done is to help us as a true partner to navigate through different kind of challenges, as well as help us to leverage resources. I'll give you two examples, right? One example is the example of Vanuatu I provided earlier. And this is a fascinating example, not least because it actually cuts across several areas, including climate, including livelihood, including trade and tourism and other kinds of support. But a significant contribution by Australia was made back in 2015 when Australia was the donor facilitator. So in each country, let me spend 1 minute to explain what donor means. So donor facilitator are the ones who are actually appointed by the government in consultation with the donor constituency to coordinate the donor side of the agenda, including contributions at the country level. So Australia as a donor facilitator in Vanuatu played a critical role in 2015 when we received requests from the government of Vanuatu for the reconstruction of the Port Vila seafront, which was completely devastated in the aftermath of Cyclone Park. And we provided them 3.1 million support, but the government of Australia, working together with the government of Vanuatu and the government of New Zealand, was able to sort of rope in the government of New Zealand to provide additional 15.8 million in resources. We provided 3.15 million. Government of New Zealand provided 15.8 million US dollars, and the government of Vanuatu put in some resources, as a result of which there's a beautiful seafront that has been built. Actually, the construction was completed seamlessly in 2 years' time, and then it started operating. And because of that, more cruise ships came to the Port Vila seafront, and as a result of it, there was more sort of tourists coming into the country. And we also supported the infrastructure around the seafront so that market mamas can sell their stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this is a fascinating story, and where the Australian business actually can also be involved by constructing more hotels and other kinds of tourism infrastructure, given the fact that tourist income is rising. Tourism is a booming business there, except for the time when it was halted because of COVID-19 pandemic.
That's
so
right,
that's
yeah.
one opportunity. The second one is that the Australian government and us, we work together to support the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat for the implementation of a project called Pacific Quality Infrastructure Initiative, where the Australian quality infrastructure agencies and government funding actually help us to do more with the same amount of resources that we provide. We provided 1.5 million, more resources were put in. So now they have a better quality infrastructure system in place, which would help Australian business to import goods from the Pacific Island countries. Now that you have PACER Plus, which has come into implementation, and this is a very good opportunity to import more from Pacific Island countries, right? The third example that I want to provide is the example of Solomon Island, where we've supported the cassava processing union. And as a result of which they were able to double their export, in 2022. We are yet to receive the data for 2023, but in 2022, they were able to literally double the export of cassava to Australia.
Yeah.
Right. So the Australian business here, have an opportunity to invest more in cassava processing in countries such as Solomon Island and elsewhere, and take advantage of the opportunity of PACER Plus to import those goods to Australia. So that's the other example. The fourth example that I would like to provide is that with the EIF support, we have actually supported the government of Bhutan through a project called Brand Bhutan Project, right? They actually started the first overseas Bhutan store in Perth in Australia, and this
Oh,
was
wow.
done in
Great.
December 2022. The outlet will promote Bhutanese products, particularly high value niche product, and they have been doing it actually.
Yeah.
And this is one-stop center for all made in Bhutan and grown in Bhutan product. So made in Bhutan is the, when it comes to manufactured product, they said made in Bhutan. When it comes to agriculture product, they say grown in Bhutan.
Yeah.
And it is a great pathway for Australian businesses to profitably engage with the work of the EIF. And finally, here's what I actually mentioned earlier is the kind of work that we are doing on the digital space. So what we did is to work together with UNCTAD here in Geneva to conduct e-trade readiness assessment of all the Pacific Island countries. I mean LDCs. Back then LDCs.
Yeah.
Vanuatu has now graduated, but we started with Samoa, which had already graduated. Then we did one in Vanuatu, Kiribati, Tuvalu, as well as Solomon Island. So as a result of which, they are in a position to better understand, what are the challenges and what are the priorities on digital space, and they have started investing in upgrading the quality of their sort of infrastructure and services in digital area. And this is one area where I think the Australian business as well as the government will have tremendous opportunities to collaborate with the Pacific Island less developed countries and recently graduated countries in order to advance the business opportunities. So it's not only about trade linkage, it is about investment, it is about the digital sort of infrastructure, is it about quality infrastructure? There are a range of areas where Australian businesses can be involved to take advantage of the opportunities that are being offered as a result of a small but impactful catalytic support we provided in the region. And
Well,
if you want to learn more, yes,
yeah.
I
Oh, please, please.
yeah, I mean, if we are Australian businesses actually, they want to learn more, they can go to our website, Enhance IF, www.enhanceif.org, or also follow our LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook pages, as well as there's this dedicated news platform called Trade for Development News that we have created, and that's also available in our website, and it contains wide variety of interesting trade stories from LDC.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ratnakar. I think it's been a fantastic interview. It's created so much information, but also inspiration to what these LDCs can aspire to be, and the fact that there's trade is a critical part of really growing cultures, economies, and passing down to generational opportunities as well. So, congratulations to you and the team at EIF. I look forward to watching and staying in touch with you and the team, and hopefully doing more interviews and updates as we go as well in the future.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for providing this opportunity. And your, outlet is a great opportunity to reach out to the audience out there, in the region where you are working. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ratnakar. I look forward to staying in touch. Take care.
Bye. Bye.